What do you do when you've done nothing wrong? But everything goes wrong. What do you do when heaven is silent? When your prayers seem to bounce off the ceiling? When the life you built collapses in a single day? Today, we are talking about a man whose faith survived everything. A man who lost wealth, lost children, lost health, but refused to lose God. This is the story of Job, a story of pain, endurance, and unshakable faith. And before this video ends, you will understand why your suffering is not the end of your story. Part 1. A man blessed beyond measure. The Bible introduces Job as a righteous man, blameless, upright, one who feared God and avoided evil. He wasn't just spiritually strong, he was materially blessed. He had thousands of sheep, camels, oxen, and donkeys. He had servants, he had influence, he had 10 beautiful children. In his time, Job was the greatest man in the East. Imagine that, successful, respected, wealthy, God-fearing. Job wasn't struggling because of sin. He wasn't being punished. He was faithful, and sometimes even the faithful are tested. Part 2. The conversation in heaven. Bible reveals something powerful happening behind the scenes. Satan appears before God and challenges Job's loyalty. He basically says, "Of course Job worships you. Look at how blessed he is. Remove the protection. Take away the blessings. He will curse you." And God allows the test, not because Job failed, but because Job was strong enough to face it. Let that sink in. Sometimes your test is not proof of weakness. It is proof of trust. Part 3. One day that changed everything. In a single day, disaster strikes. A messenger arrives. The oxen and donkeys were stolen. Another comes. Fire fell from heaven and burned the sheep. Another, the camels were taken. And then, the worst news of all, a strong wind collapsed the house where his children were gathered. All 10 of them died. In one day, Job lost his business, his wealth, his future, his children. Imagine the silence in that house. Imagine the weight of that grief. What would you say? Would you still pray? Part 4. Job's unbelievable response. Job tears his robe. He shaves his head. He falls to the ground, but not in anger. He worships. He says, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." That is faith, not the faith that praises when you get the job, but the faith that praises when you lose everything. Job didn't understand what was happening in heaven. He didn't know about the conversation. He just knew this. God is still God, and that was enough. Part 5. The second blow bit. The attack wasn't over. Satan returns and says, "Skin for skin. Touch his health, and he will curse you." God allows it, but Job's life is spared. Painful sores break out from the sole of his feet to the crown of his head. He sits in ashes, scraping his skin with broken pottery, from richest man to broken man, in days. Then his wife says something many people think but don't say, "Curse God and die." Even the closest person to him didn't understand his faith. But Job replies, "Shall we accept good from God and not trouble?" Faith that survives everything does not collapse under pressure. Part 6. When friends misunderstand. 3 friends come to comfort Job. At first, they sit in silence for 7 days. That was powerful, but then they begin to talk. And they make a mistake many people still make today. They assume suffering equals sin. They tell Job, "You must have done something wrong. God is punishing you. Confess your secret sin." But Job knows his heart. And here is something important. Not every storm is punishment. Not every pain is your fault. Sometimes your suffering is part of a bigger story you cannot see. Part 7. Job's honest prayer. Here's what makes Job powerful. He didn't fake strength. He cried. He questioned. He wished he had never been born. He said, "Why was I not stillborn?" He wrestled with God, but he never walked away. There is a difference between questioning God and abandoning God. Job brought his confusion to God, not away from him. And maybe that's where you are right now, confused, hurting, wondering why. God can handle your questions. Part 8. The declaration of unbreakable faith in the middle of pain. Job makes one of the strongest faith statements in history. Though he slay me, yet will I trust him. That is next level faith, not conditional faith. Not convenient faith, but covenant faith. He also says, "I know that my Redeemer lives." Job speaks hope before he sees restoration, and that is the secret. Faith is not based on circumstances. It is based on conviction. Part 9. When God speaks after chapters of silence, God finally responds. Not with explanations, not with apologies, but with revelation. God asks Job, "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Have you commanded the morning? Can you bind the chains of the stars?" God reminds Job of his sovereignty. And suddenly Job realizes, if God can run the universe, he can handle my life. Faith grows when perspective shifts. Part 10. Restoration. Then something incredible happens. God restores Job. But notice something important. Restoration came after endurance. Job prays for the very friends who accused him. And God gives him double what he had before. Double the livestock. Double the wealth. New children. Long life. The story didn't end in ashes. It ended in abundance. Part 11. What Job teaches you as Job teaches us. 1. You can be righteous and still suffer. 2. God's silence does not mean his absence. 3. Pain is not proof that God left you. 4. Faith is strongest when everything else is gone. 5. Restoration is possible. Your current chapter is not your final chapter. The ashes are not the end. Part 12. Speak to the viewer directly. Maybe you lost a job. Maybe you lost a relationship. Maybe you lost someone you love. Maybe your health is failing. And you're asking, why me? Listen carefully. Your story is not over. Like Job, you may not understand the heavenly conversations happening over your life. But if you hold on, if you refuse to curse God, if you keep your integrity, there is restoration on the other side. Faith that survives everything creates testimonies that inspire generations. Closing. Music builds. Job survived loss. He survived sickness. He survived accusations. He survived silence. And because he held on, God turned his suffering into a story of victory. So today, choose faith, even when it hurts, even when it's silent, even when it's confusing, because sometimes the greatest blessing comes after the greatest battle. Narrator's strong final line. If Job's faith survived everything, so can yours. Hold on. Your restoration is coming.